What is up, guys? Welcome to the theScore Esports podcast. I am your temporary host for today, Josh Burry. In the booth with me, we have Daniel Rosen.
The fixture, ever present.
He's sitting in Colin's seat because it makes him feel, I don't know, a little bit more powerful.
I feel
maybe
important. I feel just as powerful as Colin. Colin is powerful. He has muscles. I don't.
Speaking of power, sorry, I had to take that segue. Speaking of power, we have with us on the line. We're going to get to him in just a moment. Carlos Ocelote Rodriguez. You know him as the man behind the G2 dream. And he has been making some big moves in the offseason. We want to talk about a lot of that. I mean, they have their hands in some of the major esports, and it's going to be an exciting discussion. It's always we've spoken with Carlos before, and it's always an exciting time. So
let's bring him on, Josh.
Carlos, can you hear us?
Absolutely.
How are you doing today?
Doing very good. Busy as always. Maybe even more so today.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a good.
We were saying that you were telling us before you came on that you were eating your one meal a day. What is your one meal a day? What is the one thing that you eat?
You want me actually to show you?
Yeah.
Please, if you've got it.
Let me actually show you. I mean, when I don't eat outside with a client or investor or whatever, I typically, like, my wife cooks for me, and so I'm gonna show you. Okay, it's a lot of food though. Like, I eat 1 or 2 meals a day. I do this intermittent fasting thing. So I only eat for like 6 to 8 hours a day. I don't eat for 16 or 18. And this is organic rice with eggs.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
6 eggs, 3 yolks only. Chicken, as healthily cooked as a chicken can be. And this is vegetables with curry sauce, homemade curry sauce.
Okay.
This sounds great.
It is great. I mean, I'm telling you, I don't complain. I mean, it is great. It's healthy food. It makes me feel energized. And of course, I have my vitamins. I eat a lot of vitamins during the day. Mm-hmm. Most of them during the morning. Some of them during the evening. I eat magnesium, zinc, vitamin C, vitamin D. I eat multivitamins. I take care of myself. I take blood tests every quarter. To check that everything is not good but perfect, you know?
Yeah, no, listen, it's important, right? It's good to hear. People talk about player health a lot. It's also good for management health to exist in this space.
I mean, I gotta tell you, the amount of headaches that you go through while owning an esports team nowadays is so it requires that you're always happy, and somehow that's not an easy task, right? And only accomplished through. I guess experience at being able to remain optimistic and positive regardless of what happens, and also physical health. Like I really need that.
Yeah, for sure. So, but also another, you're not just concerned about your own health. I think you're also concerned about your team health and stuff like that. And we want to talk to you about a couple of G2's teams. And I think we want to start with League of Legends. And I think the big news of the offseason is you guys, bringing in Caps and moving Perkz to AD carry. And I kind of want to ask how that move happened. How did the decision to put him at, one of the best mid laners in Europe, if not the world, over to the bottom lane?
Yeah, so, Perkz, first of all, is somebody that is incredibly confident, but not, he's really not arrogant. He's really just confident, And it just requires a lot of confidence to essentially have him being arguably the best Western mid laner in 2018, and still saying, you know what, I'm still going to give up my role to the guy that is either considered the best in the West or the second best in the West, right, in my role, Mm-hmm. And he's doing that himself because he believes in victory more than he believes in personal gain, I guess. And that is something that people because Perkz is really easy to hate, because the same way Cristiano Ronaldo is very easy to hate, but because they are easy targets because they are confident and sometimes overconfident, and people don't want to see that level of confidence because it's many times so far away from what they're used to see, even in their own lives and even with their own selves, that they feel attacked by it somehow, So he's a very easy to hate person. he's also a very easy to love guy. If you happen to be, somebody that focuses on the craft, if you happen to be somebody that focuses on somebody that focuses on progress, or if you happen to be somebody that just enjoys watching and being entertained, because he will entertain you, right? And what happened here is that even though he knew that he would get a lot of flack for giving up his role, maybe some people would be, some people have said, oh, he's giving up his role because Caps is better, which I'm sure Perkz hates to hear.
Right.
And some people are just saying, well, he lost motivation on playing mid lane, which is again not true. He just loved the mid lane. But no, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters for him is winning. Winning as a team, creating success around him, and he's a winner. And I really respect him and appreciate him very much. And moves like this just underline this stuff.
Can I ask, Carlos, was this a situation where you guys realized that Caps was a possibility, and then Perkz said, yeah, like if we get Caps, I will play AD? Or had he been thinking about playing AD carry for a while, and then sort of the Caps thing just made sense as a result of him wanting to do that?
So we always toyed with the idea. I remember I had a podcast in the G2 podcast with Perkz, and I remember I asked him if he would ever play AD carry, just randomly. And he say, yeah, I could see myself playing AD carry. And so we did have conversations about that. And at the end of the day, you want to have the best possible team every year. So we agreed that this could only happen if an opportunity like this one arose. And when we realized that Caps was potentially an opportunity for us, we saw everybody else just trying to get Caps, And at some point we're like, wait, why don't we get Caps? Why don't we get Caps? And which is like the most unexpected thing, We thought really outside the box here, and I think it will pay out, hopefully. I can't be happier in general about the actual team we have. Yesterday we made news about, I don't know however many hours or days ago, made a news about the amount of years we've signed our players for.
Yeah.
And it's every single player and coach has signed 3-year contract except Jankos, who signed 2. Right. And 3 years is like the max you can sign. What about the coffee? I need a coffee. That's funny because that's not my assistant. That's actually my COO. Okay. He's a really senior guy. He's 50-something years old, really senior, and I just asked him for a coffee. Okay?
If you don't mind me interrupting, I wanted you kind of noted something that, like you said, like this team is, you guys have committed to a long time for League of Legends to this team. You guys have made a move that I think a lot of people didn't expect. We have talked in the office, just like privately amongst ourselves, and the league fans in the office have said, like, this feels like kind of a gamble, right? If this pays off, this team is insane.
Like the elements.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Back in the day.
If this team works, it's crazy, right? Like it just kind of has to be on paper the best team in Europe if it works. Do you feel like even if it doesn't work at the gate, is that message, like those contracts, is that message like, hey, we are going to commit to this until it works and becomes the best team in Europe?
I mean, nobody knows if this is gonna work. I'm not an oracle. I don't have a guessing ball. But what I know is that if you keep doing the same thing over and over, you'll get the same results. And until today, no team in League of Legends has ever been formed, in the Western world at least, with this amount of skill together. Now, I guess you can call this super team, right? And super teams have historically failed miserably in a lot of different games.
Yep.
But is this team a super team because of the mechanical skills of the players, or is this team a super team because the players are just good all-around players? And that's a question that I like to make to people. It's true that Caps is known for big plays, and so is Perkz. But Jankos, he's been in completely different teams over and over, and he's been incredibly consistent. First Blood King, fantastic jungler. You know what you can expect from Jankos, right? And at no point in his career, he played to a level that wasn't top 3 jungler in Europe. Okay, so that's point number one. And Wonder, you can say he made big plays and yada yada yada, but is is it really flashy plays what he was making? No, he was just solid. He was good TPs, he a good read on the meta. He could play bruisers as well as full tanks. He engages. He has balls, and he's a fantastic teammate. So is he is he considered super player because he's just super great mechanically, or is it considered super player because of all these things that add up, And it goes over all in all. Mickey is somebody that, I mean, last year people were saying, yeah, Mickey's a good player, but nothing out of the ordinary, But we know something that people don't know. I'm say pro players, right? They know something that we don't know. Right. And that is that Mickey communicates incredibly well. He's not only mechanically skilled in lane, but also calls incredibly well outside of the lane. He understands vision together with the jungler. The synergy with the junglers has historically been for him fantastic as well. So all these things that add up make up, in my eyes, for a super team. But it's not the singular players adding up, making it's not the singular players' mechanics adding up to become a super team. It's the singular players' kind of general understanding of the game that, in my opinion, makes this a super team.
That's a great point, Carlos, because I think when you see super teams, a lot of times those rosters don't have that like the Yankos that you mentioned, like where you have that consistency. Is he going to like dominate the opponent every game? No. But clearly in a team like this, he doesn't have to. He has other people who can do that, and all he has to focus on is doing what he normally does and has done on a variety of rosters throughout his career. So I actually think that's a great point, and something that maybe a lot of these super teams have been missing, like having those rock people. Like not everybody has to carry the game. Indeed, not everybody can. So having those people who can just go out there, do what they do it well, and it's way better than average already. That's like a great point. But sorry, Dan, I know you want to get something.
I wanted to kind of jump to the other piece of big offseason League of Legends news that affects every team in Europe, and I want to talk about the LEC. And usually when we have team owners in the LEC on the podcast, we ask about what was the application like? Were you worried you weren't going to get in? I don't think you were ever worried that you weren't going to get into the LEC. So what I do want to ask is, we have a bunch of new teams. You guys, G2 are one of the most kind of successful and popular teams in the region. I want to know what you think will make a successful LEC, right? Franchising was not the end goal here. The end goal here was to have these teams be sustainable and everything. So what do you think will lead to that now that we're already here?
Yeah, so there's a lot of reasons why the creation of LEC is positive. And one of them that I mentioned a few times already is the fact that the so-called parasites, which I made fun of in the past.
Right.
Maybe they were also parasites because they just didn't get the entertainment factor. It's possible. But in my eyes, they were parasites also as a result of the structure in which they were competing at. Now you could argue then why G2 and Fnatic and Misfits were never parasites. Well, I guess we knew how to do our job better, right? But that's not always the case. So truthfully, when you can get relegated into second division, what happens is that all your funds by default have to be spent in improving the team so that you don't get relegated.
Right.
And then what happens is that every dollar you spend in creating content is a dollar you're not spending in getting a better jungler, or a dollar you're not spending to getting a better mid laner. And that eats up your budget to a point where you can no longer do cool branding shit and cool social media stuff and cool content all the time, because you're just fighting for survival. Now, with the creation of LEC, when there is no relegation, what will happen now is that teams like G2 will always fight to win, because that's what we do. I'm just fucking hungry. I want to win worlds, But other teams, which may care a little bit less about winning and a bit more about creating content, will also generate value for the league, right? In a different way. And I value that very highly. Whereas before, these teams would get relegated, typically. And they would disappear. And when a team disappears, the fans of that team have to rearrange their priorities, have to rearrange who do they root for. Is that my coffee? Please. Please bring it, Peter. I really need the coffee.
No, it's fair.
Thanks, Peter, you're the best. You're the best. Thank you. Oh, with milk and all? That is just beautiful. That is just beautiful.
So just to clarify, Carlos, when you're talking about parasites, you're talking about organizations that were in the EU LCS and didn't really do much to contribute to generating fans, generating viewership.
Yeah, generating impact for the, generating views, generating interest, generating, just people, the viewers just don't want to watch. And again, some of it is teams, having lineups that people are uninterested, just not interested in watching. Some of it is not enough dollars deployed in marketing and content creation and social media. And again, that is just a byproduct of what I just told you. But a lot of it is definitely attributed to them just not being the most entertaining. And in the entertainment business, if you're not entertaining, you should die. That's how it works. I mean, you should die, literally, but within the context.
I want to ask then, what are the sort of metrics you want to see, right? Because obviously you said, right, you want to win worlds, you want to be the hungry team, but you obviously still do that kind of personality-driven stuff. We've seen it before with G2. I want to know what the metrics you want to see out of the LEC, either for yourself or through other teams, to show you that, like, hey, this is a success. We know everything's not going to be super profitable day one, but what are the metrics you want to see from all this?
So first of all, we don't see the way I see this company. G2 Esports is not one-dimensional. It's actually multi-dimensional. We are a competitive esports organization, right? But and one of our values, and I don't know if you can call this a value, but it certainly is part of our DNA, is ambition. We are incredibly ambitious. Ambitious when looking to win, when looking to compete, but also ambitious when looking to create a graphic, when looking to create a video, when looking to post in social media, when looking to do something. Anything. Now, on the other hand, we are entertaining. That is on my DNA. I am more of an entertainer than I am of a competitor, actually. I think like 60-40. And I've realized this in my competitive career as well. I enjoyed competing so much, and I enjoyed competing so much. But I enjoy even more entertaining through victories, through defeats, through creation of content, both proactive and reactive video content pieces, non-scripted, semi-scripted, fully scripted. We've done music videos of G2. We've done a game. We've done reality TV shows in MTV Spain like 3 years ago called Gamers that we co-produced. Now one in Fortnite called Making the Squad as well. And that is working on season 2 right now, by the way. We've done all kinds of odd shit, that entertains. I love that kind of stuff. Our game got played by 100,000 people, and it's a web game. We developed it with an agency that we knew, and it was about it's like an arena, right? You're a gladiator, you're a samurai gladiator, and you fight against enemies, and it's pretty cool, And there was a ranking system, and we gave away stuff. It was amazing. That kind of stuff, like getting outside the box to entertain the people, is another thing we're incredibly focused on. And then number 3 is empathy. So ambition, entertainment, empathy, And empathy towards brands, empathy towards fans, empathy towards players, empathy towards everything, towards everybody. And because we understand that's the only way to entertain the people, to understand what they like and what they don't like, and so on. So now, connecting the dots, I do think that some of the teams that were maybe not so graciously by myself called parasites, they lacked a lot of this. Okay, maybe they lacked ambition. Maybe they lacked, they definitely lacked entertainment. Maybe they didn't lack empathy. Maybe they had the empathy thing going for them. But that's not how you build something that builds viewership. And Americans know this very well. Americans can make shit look like gold. That's the American dream. That's what Americans are known for. Being able to hype shit up that isn't necessarily the best. And I think that ULCS had a lot of the polar opposite. People that perhaps knew how to execute, I guess, knew how to structure, I guess, a business, but did not have that hype factor going for them. And I think that's now what is changing as a result of the structure changing as well.
Do you feel satisfied with the new teams in the LEC, with who's here in this league? And maybe it's too early to say, but do you like what you're seeing, at least so far, with anybody you've spoken to and the organization you've seen get in?
Yeah, the how do you call it? Proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I think, right? We'll know about this 6 months from now. We'll know about this few years from now.
Fair.
But I have good vibes so far, yeah.
So the other thing I want to ask is something that we've been hearing from a lot of the LEC guys we've been speaking to is this kind of renewed focus on regionalization. And I remember when I did an interview with you a few years ago, and you talked a lot about how, G2 has these kind of big pockets of fan bases in certain parts of Europe, in certain countries. I think Spain and France obviously came up. I want to know, is that something you're interested in? Because we spoke to, I think, both Excel and Misfits, I think, mentioned that they're interested in kind of talking about the UK, and Schalke and SK were interested in Germany. Is there kind of a focus for you on being like, hey, we want to be at least one country's team?
We don't want to be a country's team, and the reason is because it's like you're trying to build walls, artificial walls, towards the level of ambition that I have for this company. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I feel like it's disingenuous. So I wanna entertain the people. I don't care if the people is black, blue, yellow, green. I don't care what the color of the people is or what language they speak. I want to entertain them. Mm-hmm. And I want to be able to be so good at my job that I can break the cultural differences between countries and between different, races and different kind of people in a way that everybody ends up maybe liking, maybe disliking, but definitely being entertained by the content we generate. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a dream that I can never delete from my brain. Now, connecting the dots to regionalization. For me, regions, Spain, Germany, France, the US, Canada, anything you're imagining, are a perfect tool to, and please let me finish, a perfect tool to interact with the fans physically. You don't need to be called the Madrid Bears in order to interact with your fan base from Madrid or from Spain. You can be just called G2 Esports and make a fan meet in London, a viewing party in Madrid, a viewing party in LA, and another viewing party in New York, and meanwhile you're hosting an event in your Berlin facility, right? Mm-hmm. And that, in my mind, is how the new age entertainment industries are moving towards, or where the new age entertainment industries are moving towards. We see this with movies in Hollywood. They go round trips around the world to promote the movie. China, they come to Germany, they go to Spain, they go to France, to the Cannes Festival, they go to everywhere in the world to interact physically with the fans of those movies, because these movies are global properties. And that's the same way I envision G2 Esports. So I don't think you will ever see us, unless we get forced to, pick up a country and only a country. Mm-hmm. Because that would essentially put artificial barriers in what we're doing, and I don't believe in that. Now, it is possible that for the purpose of a specific game that perhaps Spanish people is super interested in, we create an only Spanish team. Mm-hmm. Or perhaps if there's an academy team, and the academy team can be both utilized to both train against, as well as, of course, use them as starting players if the opportunity comes, but also secondly, to have an entry point towards that market and to engage the people in that market meaningfully with something that you can call your team. That is, in my eyes, the best way to kind of use that regional presence. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's a tough question.
I definitely understand what you're getting at. And I will note that I don't want to make it sound like those teams aren't also interested in a global presence, but obviously, right, I think your goal is to be more than just, hey, obviously we have we want to like cater to these fans, but we want to have this global presence. We want to be interesting. But sorry, I think I'm interrupting Josh. He wanted to say something.
No, Carlos, I just wanted to say, despite the fact that obviously you want G2 Esports to be a global property, you clearly have a lot of fans in Spain. And your opening match is against another Spanish favorite property, Origin. So just
it's Danish now, though.
It is Danish now. Okay. They are technically Danish now.
I mean, sure, but I mean, you're not gonna Like, you're not gonna destroy that legacy of fans. I think. I mean, maybe it did. I don't know.
Maybe those fans have, like, given the relegation stuff. Maybe that's already happened.
I don't know.
They will have a lot of Spanish fans.
Yeah, I remember.
But it's pretty much. Let me use an analogy. It's like if you buy an Opel and then you change the chassis to that one of a Ferrari and then call it Ferrari, right? Sorry, and then still call it Opel. Sorry. You change the chassis and it very much looks like a Ferrari, you know. So it's a tough question to answer, you know. Are they still Spanish? Are they Danish? I don't know. I think for the sake of banter, it's good to call them Danish.
That's nice. I still consider them Spanish because I know that there are a few diehard fans out there who have lived through the darkest of times.
There's a lot of diehard fans for Origin.
I know. There's actually, I just want to quickly mention, there's a guy who I see commenting on a lot of esports posts on Twitter whose handle for the longest time has been the Last Origin fan. And I just...
Shout outs to Last Origin
I know he's not the Last Origin fan, but I think if you were like a fan in like late 2017, you might think you were the Last Origin fan.
There's two teams that have these guys that are all the way from 8 to 12 years old. There's a Fnatic and Origin fans that are incredibly noisy in Twitter and in social media in general. If you make news about something that is maybe good news, the first fucking comment is always that guy. And that guy from that team. Never not. I find it hilarious though. I like it.
Twitter banter is the best.
I have a theory that I always mention, and I really believe in this, because this fan that is incredibly noisy and annoying exists. G2 develops fans that are incredibly noisy and annoying and do the same to them. Yeah. And as a result of that, their fans will buy the Fnatic and Origin t-shirts, whereas ours will buy G2 t-shirts. And they wouldn't, or they would be less likely to buy the club they're a fan of jerseys if they wouldn't be having this opposite side in the other team, you know?
You got to represent.
So that rivalry creates expectancy, hype, which simultaneously drives more revenue towards everybody. It's a fantastic thing. So please keep being annoying.
No, I love the banter on Twitter. We actually published a story of Caps recently, and we tweeted about it. And there was a guy in the comments who was like, why are you doing videos about Caps? You should do a video about Golden Glue, who's clearly the best mid laner in the world. And like, I'm not going to trash on Golden Glue because I love Golden Glue. He's a great guy, and he definitely showed a ton of improvement last year. But come on, man. Come on.
Like, really hilarious.
Anyways, Dan, I think wants to ask some serious questions.
I was interested in, because you talked a lot about, you know, G2 being this global property, which I think you know, they are, if they're not at least on the way to. And I want to ask, because there was a lot of news about this back, you know, at the time, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Was there ever, you know, thinking about, or at least attempting to make the move to NA when that was franchising?
Yeah, I can't talk about that. You know, I can't talk about the League of Legends side of things. What I can tell you is that from a company standpoint, North America is super important for us. We have a Call of Duty team that is now doing incredibly well. They have important tournament coming. See if we can kick Optic's ass. Fingers crossed. And we have a Rocket League team also from North America, one of the best historically, former world champions. We just made a change, and things are looking incredibly great as well. I think we just won we won the last NARLCS as well. So we have a lot of presence in North America. For us, North America is super important. So long story short, increasing our footprint in North America has always been a priority, and increasingly so in 2019 forward.
All right. So moving then to another part of the world and another game entirely, then we want to switch over to talking about Counter-Strike. And I guess we just kind of want to start by asking, you know, what is sort of the next step for this current iteration of G2CS?
Yeah, only us, only we know the next steps. But I can tell you that the same thing I told to Thorin kind of recently is that for the first time we have control over the team, which with French teams has historically been impossible. because and not only French teams, but CS:GO in general.
Yeah.
There is this, or there has been historically, again, especially in Europe, a very player-focused leadership approach, where players have total control over what happens in a lineup. And that is very risky, very, very risky. There's a reason why players don't decide when somebody's getting substituted or not, or when a player is being bought or whatever, right? Of course, if you're Messi or Neymar, then you can, I guess, assert some pressure and get the right players into your team, but you're only suggesting, merely suggesting. You can never demand that a player is hired. You can never demand that a player plays or that he doesn't get sapped. And that's something that in Counter-Strike historically has been the norm, actually. And I wanted to break that norm completely because I know that I do my job better than them. So, and when I say I say Danny, Jamie, Jerome, Malek, like the people that lead the team on a management level, on the coaching level even, know more about what makes a team a winning team than the players. The players are great at, and maybe actually let me rephrase this. Players are great at playing, and players are great at understanding how to win, but players are not great at salvaging a situation when things are going downhill. Players are not always great. Why is that? Because a player is always emotionally attached and tunnel visioned into the game, right? And they develop friendships with the other players. And I'm just explaining an example. What happens when you develop a friendship with another player and your tunnel vision into your job is that you may or may not realize that this player is the problem, right? And even if you realize that this player is the problem, you don't have the pedigree to make a change there. Not always, at least, right? There are players that they can, but it's more often than not that you will find players making unreasonable decisions or lack thereof, thanks to just being too tunnel visioned and having emotional attachments to the other players. For that reason, you always need a coach. That's why traditional sports teams will always have a coach and a GM and a president, et cetera, because they are people that as far up you go on the ladder, the more macro perspective they have over the business and over the team. So now, finally, I am in a place where I can say we have control over the Counter-Strike team, and in a good way. And this control will make them win more. And this control will make them a successful team, as we've been doing in every other game we've been a part of. So it's a matter of time, a little bit of patience, and I have it's not even, I'm not even optimistic. I just have very high expectations now.
I like Carlos how you were hedging a little bit because you were talking about like historically in Europe, but I mean I'm gonna say it. The French Counter-Strike scene has historically been pretty small in number. Everybody knows everybody. People have feelings about one another, and those feelings are not easy to overcome, and it can limit your options to even build 100%. A lineup, right? Why are you committing so hard to France? Don't get me wrong. I love it because I love the French scene. I want to see the French scene.
I don't commit to anything. I mean, I couldn't make an international team because I didn't have the control of the team. But if I see an opportunity right now to make an international team, which means better access to better talent by default, while the players being mentally on board with it, why wouldn't we do that? I'm not close to going international at all.
Sweet. I'm happy to hear that.
International teams. There's always ups and downs, right? Same way as if you bring a South Korean player to a League of Legends team. There's pros and cons. The pros is that you have access to a bigger pool of better talent, potentially, or bigger pool of talent, which as a result gets you better talent. But then the downside is that the communication gets terribly worse. Factually, and communication not only in-game, but culturally. There's sort of more cultural differences. French people are, more often than not, alike other French people. But French people are, more often than not alike Polish people. So if you make a super team with international players, rest assured, there will be cultural differences that will show in-game and outside the game. Are those cultural differences large enough to justify not making the move? Or are the players good enough to justify making the move despite those cultural differences? That's the question.
Well, yeah, and I think we've seen plenty of examples in CS of players who were just sort of forced to play in lineups that they, might not have chosen to do if they had their exact preference. But those players have gone on to be some of the game's greatest players. Like, I think Guardian is a great example. He had to learn Russian to play the game. He probably didn't want to do that, but he came from a country where he just like, how are you going to build a lineup?
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah,
so.
truth is that the same way some people use long-term contracts for good, and so the same way some organizations take really good players under contract and build a team around them that is fantastic. Other organizations take that same example and as an opportunity to spend less money on the team while being somewhat competitive. Right. If you have somebody like Perkz in your team for 3 years, you could technically get away with getting 4 bonobos on board that just do really mediocre.
Mediocre. That's the word.
Yeah, that are mediocre, and you will get, I guess, top 3 because Perkz will just solo carry, right? We've seen that with a few players in North America. We've seen that with a few players in Europe. And that is simply organizations banking on the fact that, oh my God, I just closed this deal with this player. Now let me save money on the side. And as a result, you have a mediocre team that could have been fantastic if the right people are around that right player,
Wouldn't the bonobos be imports, though?
Is a bonobo monkey from Africa?
I'm just messing around.
The bonobos from Africa.
There's no bonobos in Europe, right? So they'd be import players.
Oh,
I'm messing around.
I didn't even know what a bonobo is. I just knew that people said bonobo.
It's a kind of ape or monkey or something, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that makes sense. You get 4 monkeys. Yeah, just simply not thinking and just playing and not being the greatest.
Just
that makes sense.
4 monkeys picking.
I had no idea what a bonobo was. See that?
We learned something.
We all learned something today.
This is a cool thing, and I guess sometimes the not so cool thing of being Spanish, or I guess not speaking English as mother tongue. Sometimes you'll pick up on sentences people say, and you'll use them as well, but because you know when to use them,
right.
But you don't know the total meaning of it.
You know the context, but not
the context, but not the
content,
direct reason why they're calling them like that. So
it's like every Twitch emote in the world, Carlos. It's like most people, I feel they don't know where it came from or what it actually means. They just use it when other people use it, right?
Well, I love it. Monkeys. I love it. That makes sense.
Get 4 monkeys in there picking Wukong. I want to ask then, you mentioned that like now you have control over the lineup. I want to know what changed. What led to you now having that ability to be like, hey, we're calling the shots now. It's not you guys anymore.
Yeah, I will have to get into deal-making strategy, and I'm not comfortable with that. But
all right, that's fair.
Yeah, we knew we had to take control of the team because we knew that with our experience, the team could be, again, a winning team. Man, people like Shox and Kenny can't not win.
Yeah.
This is the bottom line. Bottom line is people like Shox and Kenny can't not win. Simple. So with that in mind, just let us do.
Mm-hmm. Having said that, Carlos, this is a team that, while exciting and has shown some flashes of brilliance at times, has been pretty inconsistent. And I want to know, how does that affect the G2 brand when you have a team that has this sort of inconsistency? Like, how does it affect it?
Of course it affects. Every time you win, every time you lose, every time you you make a video, every time you post something on social media you're not proud of, you're building into the brand. And at the end of the day, your brand perception is a combination of all these things and how they add up, right? Mm-hmm. Although sometimes it's just falling in grace. Many times a brand falls in grace because they're at the right place at the right time. TSM is a good example. And then apart from that moment, everything is easier. Mm-hmm. But yeah, more often than not, it's a combination of things that make up the brand perception. And every time you have a team, we've built our name by being the team that has won the most in 24 to 36 months since the creation of G2. Mm-hmm. Or since we qualified to LCS. And I don't think there's been any other team that has won so much in so many different games in such a short period of time. And that's why every time you don't win, the brand takes a small hit. But at the same time, it's not too bad because people know, okay, they will figure it out because it's G2. That's how players think, by the way. Many players gravitate toward our organization because they're like, listen, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Maybe my teammate breaks his arm. Maybe the game, I don't know, loses popularity. Maybe I don't play as well. Maybe, I don't know. It doesn't matter what happens. We know that G2 knows how to navigate to make the team a winning team again. And a player that's mediocre typically doesn't like that because a mediocre player will have fear of being kicked one day. Mm-hmm. So a team that is that understands victory as one of the pillars, right? That's a competitive team. You must be like that, right? Then if you're a mediocre player, then you will fear that. But if you're a winning player, you'll be like, oh my God, that's so cool because I know I'll give my best. I know I'll be good. But what if my teammates are not? I see that team in North America and that team in Europe that have this one player that is fantastic, but they're surrounding him with not the greatest players. And as a result, the player's getting top 3, top 4 when he should be winning the whole thing. Well, I don't want to be that player. I want to be the player that I want to be in G2 because G2 builds around the best players with better players or with equally good players, you know? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's why players gravitate towards G2 in many, many different games. And it, again, builds up into the brand narrative of two things. First of all, if you follow G2, may that be as a hater or as a lover, you know you will be entertained. You know that. Right. You will watch our games. You know you'll be entertained. It doesn't matter what game you look at. We are always top 2 worldwide, or top 3 maybe worldwide, in terms of viewership numbers. Any game you look at, and which as a result provide us very good kind of league revenue share in whatever league we're a part of, because there's incentive bonuses for kind of viewers. And then number 2, you expect us to do very well competitively, and if we don't, you expect us to fix it to do very well competitively. Right. So I guess that narrative is a self-fulfilling prophecy and almost like a snowball effect that helps us very much. Consider ourselves actually pretty lucky with how the first few years went, because it makes our lives very much easier now.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that whole like perception of G2, because I remember Pengu talking about that when they got signed, like talking very much about how there's just it's a better perception, a perception of stability, a perception that things will be competitive, and that
you mean Pengu Rainbow Six?
Yes, yeah. Yeah. I'm a big Rainbow Six fan, so I had to.
Yeah, same here, man. What a great game.
I know, I love it, and they've done a lot to really
Ubisoft.
bolster it.
I love Ubisoft. I love what they do, and even with single player games, so you see this Assassin's Creed stuff they're doing. They keep updating the game. It's so great, man. I love companies that actually after release keep updating the game for like months and months and months and months and months without even getting DLCs on the way. Like, it's really cool. I like it.
Yeah, I want to ask actually, Carlos, since we're talking about the market a little bit. Sorry. I just want to hit on Rainbow Six before we move away from that, because you guys went in. It was huge news. This is clearly now the greatest team in the world right now at this moment. How do you feel about your experience with Rainbow Six as an esports so far? And do you have any thoughts about what the future of the scene will look like for G2?
Yeah, I love the game. I love the pace of the game. It's very unique. I love the tactical background of the game. I love their fan base. The fan base of the game is incredibly diehard. Like they are. I mean, that community is amazing. Mm-hmm. Imagine it as a more tactical Counter-Strike. That's the way I see it, at least, right? Yeah. And I love being part of that. Now, from our standpoint of having right now the best team in the world, we play in the Invitational soon as well. So let's see how that goes. It honestly feels like it is very hard to keep a team at the very top, because when you win a tournament, when you win the first trophy, it's not like you rest on your laurels, but a part of you has made it, right?
Yeah.
When you win a trophy, when you raise a trophy, a part of you feels like you made it. And that is a really hard thing to play against. There's good in having the confidence of having won so many tournaments, but there's a lot of bad, because when you start losing, which is it happens in scrims, it happens every time, you may lose that. Right? Like, am I not having it anymore? And you may miss the hunger of winning again and raising the trophy again. So remaining at the top, like this team is remaining at the top, is so incredibly tough
Mm-hmm.
from an organizational standpoint and from a player standpoint. And I think we're doing quite well right now in terms of mindset. I think we still have the right mindset, but we have to be very eyes open in case that changes, because these are games that millions and millions of players play, and many of them want to become professional players. And you either adapt or die, and you will need to make lineup changes at some point, because there will be young people that are fantastic at the game, and you have to be prepared to do that.
Mm-hmm. I know personally, I was an outside Dream because I think I went to the Paris major, and when I actually met Pengu and a lot of the G2 guys, and I fell in love with that game there, and I don't know, it's an exciting thing, and it's cool that to hear, right, that like you guys are at least somewhat committed to it, and seeing that new player base come up. Before we start to wrap, we want to ask about that, what Josh kind of alluded to. And you were tweeting the other day about kind of.
And by the other day, it was like 2 weeks ago.
It was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Listen. We wrote these questions.
It's technically the other day.
It's the other day.
It's a day that isn't this one, I guess.
There you go. About you kind of welcoming a market correction in esports, which is sort of a conversation that has been happening over the last month or two. And I want to ask, do you think there is a market correction coming, and what do you think it might look like?
I think a market crash is coming, but I mean it's potentially coming, but I mean I don't want to be cryptic, but I don't want to be too factual either. I think a market crash on global economy is coming. I don't think it's specific to esports, but either if the esports market itself crashes or an actual global economy crash occurs, there's of course negative things associated with this happening. People lose jobs. Companies die, which is not always bad, by the way. And people have problems with, dealing with rent and yada yada. So all the bad stuff is bad, terrible. Okay, but if you look from the position of a businessman, separating yourself on an emotional level, and look at this from an optimistic standpoint, the fact that there is a deceleration in the market, or there is a deceleration in the global market even, is always a positive development if you're doing your homework properly. Mm-hmm. If you have money on the side, if you don't overspend stupid stuff you don't need, if you're mindful with everything that occurs in the company, if you have good control over the culture of the company, overseas even, if you hire the right people, if you mentor them properly, if you're able to give them enough freedom so that you can focus on the stuff that matters, if you do all these things properly, you will be hurt less than others that don't do their job just as well. And that is a great opportunity to hire talent that will perhaps leave other companies that have not done a good job, hiring them at that moment, when otherwise you wouldn't have access to them, because they would be, again, a part of your competitors, for example, right? Mm-hmm. So when things go wrong is when investors make their most money. Imagine you invest in the market when the market has lost 40 points, right? Mm-hmm. Then, it's really hard to time the market, I guess, right? But yeah, let's imagine you do that. Let's imagine you invest when the market has gone 40% down. Well, you know that there's a very high likeliness that the market will go back up, right? When everything stabilizes. It has always happened. The market as a whole will do that. Maybe some companies die in the process, but the market as a whole will go up again. So that is a 40% that that sooner than later you will get back. The price will get back up, and you will get a 40% kind of performance sooner than otherwise if you would have invested at the peak. So the same happens here. When things go bad, it's a perfect opportunity for companies that do a good job at creating sustainable businesses to remain in power and to get even more, solidify their prowess worldwide. That is the reason why I said that.
It's interesting that you kind of note about how it could be a global economic thing, not just an esports specific thing. Because last time we had a global economic crash, it impacted esports very directly, because that was around when the Championship Gaming Series in North America, like that totally destroyed all but one,
Yep.
all but two of those teams, right? Like Complexity, I think, and Ninjas in Pajamas are the only teams that survived that. And so it's interesting to note that, like, listen, you know, it doesn't have to just be an esports thing. I'm curious if you feel like you kind of mentioned this, if it could be a direct esports thing. A conversation you've been having a little bit with a lot of folks who are in various, in Counter-Strike and various other shooting games, is that they've been having a problem talking to sponsors. Have you experienced that at all? That people are kind of skittish about certain games these days?
I mean, you can. There's two ways to approach life. Either you complain about everything, or you complain about nothing. You know. and I don't like to complain about that. Why is that? I mean, if you go to Nestle, or you go to tell me what is a pacifier brand?
Oh, I have no. Josh, do you know one? You have a baby. Do you know pacifier brands?
I have a baby, but I'm buying in Germany stuff, so I don't even know the names. But let's imagine a pacifier brand for your baby, you know? Well, of course you can't sell Counter-Strike to them. The fuck do you expect? So there's always a market for everything, you know?
So
and
so tactical pacifiers are off the table, it sounds like.
What again?
I guess tactical pacifiers are off the table. Like, that's not we can't get some camo, you know?
I mean, here's the thing. Like, if people just complain for the sake of complaining, oh my God, I can't sell weapons to a baby. Well, no shit. So, there's market for everything. You know, there are brands interested in first-person shooters. There are a lot of brands. I know them. I speak to them. And there are brands, and those same brands may not be as interested in Hearthstone.
Right.
You know? And that's just the circle of life.
Yeah, okay. Makes sense.
That's how it works.
Okay. All right. Well, Carlos, we're pretty much ready to wrap up. But like we mentioned, we'd love to give you a chance if there's a topic that we didn't touch on that you want to touch on, or even just shout-outs that you want to give before we let you go.
No, man, I'm good, man. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks so much to every supporter of G2, regardless of what games you support, may that be Rainbow Six, Counter-Strike, League of Legends, Rocket League, Call of Duty, whatever it is, you know. We have 12 teams right now, so that's a lot of games to follow if you're a G2 fan. And not too much, man. We actually 2019 is going to be so insane, like our best year to date yet. And that is because a lot of stuff that I can't even talk about yet is being worked on right now, and is reliably worked on right now, that is gonna blow your mind. So keep supporting us. I appreciate that so very much. I'm 28 years of age, and I've been in esports for half my life, like 14 years now. That's a lot of time, and I've been always sort of a controversial figure, but because not always have I been as mature as I may be right now. I've been a bit of a special guy at times, you know, perhaps too vocal for my taste even.
Right.
And over the years, I've come to realize that there's people that have followed me along this journey in these 14 years, actually 13 years approximately, that still are with us today, and every day that passes, we get more people like this, one more. And we're building such an army right now, and that's why we call it the G2 Army, that, they always vouch for us. They always help us, support us, whatever happens. They support our players. They provide them comfort when things don't go as well. They cheer for them when things go well. It's just great, and I appreciate all of you guys. It's really nice.
Well, I like that you mentioned Rainbow Six first, and I'm also ready to have my mind blown, Carlos. So
yeah, hopefully we can bring you on again to talk about all the mind blowing stuff. You know, maybe after the first split of LEC, after this Counter-Strike team goes into the stratosphere, everything, all the exciting stuff, and we can talk to you about it again. But otherwise, thank you so much for taking the time. Sorry.
Either we get first or we get last in LEC.
Either way, it's entertaining and it's a good story.
It's gonna be fun anyway, guys. Yeah, it's gonna be games, you know.
Like you said, Carlos.
Kill games.
Like you said, Carlos. At least we'll be entertained either way. So I mean, there it is.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and have a great rest of your day.
That's it.
All right. Bye.
Cheers, man.
Great.
Yeah, that was always fascinating talking to Carlos. Just it's rare. I think, obviously, we talk to a lot of folks in esports, a lot of management types, and it's always fun to hear someone who is very willing to break down the barrier and just tell you almost everything.
I think as journalists we're used to kind of getting the PR spiel.
Yeah.
And you don't tend to get that from Carlos. He'll either just answer it or just say like, I can't answer that, and I love that. The half answer is one of my least favorite things. And
it's the least favorite genre of PR response.
Sweet.
All right. Well, I think it's. I'm actually starting to get really warm in here, Josh.
Really?
This room is getting warm. The computer was like screaming before.
Yeah, I don't know if
people could hear it.
Hopefully that doesn't come through on the recording, but it was like a jet engine next to my head.
It was really terrifying.
It was scary.
It was scary.
I thought it might explode, and so I like it's right here, guys. Like my hand is on it. I do have long arms, but if it blows up, I'm the first one to go.
He's the first one gone. I'm probably the second one gone.
The monitor might deflect some of the shrapnel from Dan, but I don't know. And I'm definitely goners.
You're gone. That fan is coming right into my face.
Anyway,
this is getting really grotesque. I'm going to do the outro for us. Thank you so much to Carlos for being on. Thank you so much for listening for the theScore Esports podcast. You can find all of our stuff on the very YouTube channel you're watching this right now. You can follow us on social media. We're theScore Esports everywhere. For Josh Burry, for the absent Colin McNeil, I've been Daniel Rosen, saying until next time, GG.